right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Gooses Acre for our town hall with Montgomery County Judge candidate Jay Stittleburg. Jay is going to get up here in a minute and he's going to tell you what he is going to do to make Montgomery County a better place for you and I to live in. I've never known a person who works as hard as Jay. I've never known a person who is as dedicated to his cause as Jay Stittleburg is, and I've never met somebody who loves public service as much as this man does. And I'm going to now turn it over to him, your future county judge, Jay Stittleburg.
Well, good evening, everybody. Thanks. Again, I'm Jay Stittleburg. I'm an Iraq War veteran. I'm a graduate of the U.S. Naval Academy. I was a submarine warfare officer in the Navy. I served 2 tours on 2 fast attack submarines. I hold a master's degree in engineering management from Old Dominion University in Norfolk, Virginia. And I'm a certified project management professional. And I currently work in the oil and gas industry as a project manager. Specifically, I do consulting to owner-operators on OSHA, EPA, and Department of Homeland Security regulatory compliance. And I am your Democratic nominee for county judge in my So, again, I want to thank you all for coming, taking the time to come. I love doing these things. I always tell Adam that I don't care if 1 person shows up or 1,000 people show up. They're important to me either way, and I love doing them. So I think they're really important. I think this is the most important thing we do as candidates, and hopefully, if I earn your vote, it's the most important thing I'll do as an elected official, is talk to the people that I represent. Because I work for you if I'm an elected official. You don't work for me. And some people have lost that in the realm of our political environment today. So, again, thanks for being here. I'm going to kind of ad-lib the rest of this. I like to ad-lib. I don't like to read from paper if I don't have to. So I'm going to talk about some of the key things I want to do as the county judge. And the thing I'm going to add to it is I'm going to talk a little bit about how I plan on doing those things as a county judge. So I'm not just going to tell you what I want to do, I'm going to tell you how I want to do it too. And then obviously, we will definitely have time for questions at the end. If you have any questions, if I don't talk about something that's of interest to you specifically. But I'll try to touch on all the major things that are going on in the county, at least that we see in the political realm right now. There's tons of things we could talk about that don't get talked about and are probably a lot more important than the things that get made political throughout these campaigns. So anyway, we on the campaign team are working really hard to get out there and talk to as many people as we can talk to. And quite frankly, I don't care if those people are Democrats, Republicans, Independents, I don't care. I want to talk to everybody because I've said it before about this particular job, and in my opinion, any job in county government, these are partisan races about non-partisan politics. The job of the county judge is about the responsible and transparent spending of your tax dollars. That's what this job is about. It has nothing to do with this crazy political environment we live in today that divides Democrats and Republicans on a regular basis. They have no place in county government. County government doesn't legislate, they have to follow the law. That's what Austin does. Austin legislates in the state, or the federal government legislates. So again, it has nothing to do with those things. This is about fiscal responsibility with your money. And that's basically the bottom line. And so let me talk about some of those things that I want to do in the county. So for you, I certainly know that you deserve a responsible tax rate and a responsible budget in the county. And how do we do that? Well, number one, when it comes to the budget, we need to take the budget and we need to take it line by line and we need to compare it to the previous year's budgets because they're broken down into buckets, if you will, right, in the budget, those line item budgets. And so we need to take that budget from the previous years and start going through line by line. It's comparing how many dollars were in it in those previous years, how many dollars got spent in those previous years, and how many of those dollars got moved to another bucket in the budget in previous years. Because if we take a bucket and we put $300,000, this is just an example, $300,000 in it, but through the course we move it or do whatever, but the next year we come back and put another $300,000 in it, but we didn't spend $300,000 from it last year, then we probably have a problem with why we put $300,000 in that bucket. So, first of all, that's how we identify where we have maybe some shortfalls in our budget as far as why we're putting things in a certain bucket. Because we need to make sure that the right amount of money is going into the right buckets. And that's how we create transparency and accountability in the budget, is go line by line, show everybody. When we do budget workshops, there's a requirement when you do the budget workshop that the Commissioner's Court must put out basically in the newspaper, specifically says in the newspaper that circulates the county, but basically the public information about when this meeting is going to be held, where, what time, what the topic is. It's the budget workshop essentially, so that the public can come to it and ask any questions they want to about the budget. And so that's what needs to be done. And allow people to ask whatever they want to, but show them how we came up with a budget that we have to begin with. And when it comes to your tax rate, obviously the tax rate is going to be based on how that budget's put together. So the appraisal district, which should have absolutely no connection to the Commissioner's Court. There should be absolutely zero connection between the appraisal district and the Commissioner's Court in how your appraisal of your property is done. So the appraisal district is tasked with going and appraising real commercial residential property. And then, so when they appraise it, they add all those numbers together and it comes up with this big number of the appraised value of the property in the county. And then basically what you do is you take essentially last year's tax rate, you pop it into that number and see what the number comes out to be. And then you compare that number to what your budget number is. And you can adjust it up or down, either way, but we all know how it typically works. Your appraisals go up, and your tax rate in this county has effectively stayed the same over the last 10 years. It really hasn't changed much, a couple cents. And so that needs to be evaluated in how you adjust the tax rate based on the current budget, right? And it's never going to essentially even itself out from the last year. Not going to work with a county that has a population growth like ours does. There's this thing called inflation as well. So there's things that go into this calculation. But we need to be transparent about how we do it. I think the thing that irritates most people, including myself, is the transparency of how did you get to where you got, because they don't like to talk about that. And that's what we need to talk about, because it's your money. It's not my money, it's your money. And you need to know why the budget is put together the way it is. So there's the first thing. The second thing is you also deserve to have accountability from vendors and contractors that get awarded contracts. Because another part of the job of the Commissioner's Court is to award county contracts. So things for like fixing roads or parks or bridges or a myriad of things that deal with the services that the county provides. So how are we going to hold county vendors and contractors accountable? Well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go prioritize all of the contracts that the county has by the type of contract it is, the amount that the contract is, what kind of service that contract provides. Is it a lump sum? Is it a time and material? And then put the critical, most important, visible ones, prioritize at the top of the list. And then we're going to make those companies come in and give a presentation and say where they are with their KPIs so that they can show us, the Commissioner's Court, and the taxpayers how they're meeting these key performance indicators about how they're executing this project based on work complete, dollars spent, etc. So that's how we hold vendors accountable. And why should we do that? Because we should really be setting an example in the county of if you want to do business with Montgomery County, you're going to do it the right way, and you're going to be transparent with the citizens of the county on how you're spending their money, because that's exactly what they're doing. And that's how we're going to do that. You also deserve to have a road projects plan. So in 2015, the voters of this county approved $280 million of road bonds. So that money gets split up amongst the precincts for them to go execute road projects, fix roads, whatever it is. Well, you deserve to know what projects they have in the hopper, where they are. And so we're going to put together a road projects plan. I'll work with all the commissioners. We'll put them together precinct by precinct. And we'll make sure they're available on the website so that you can just go to the county website and look at your precinct and look what road projects there are in the precinct and see where they are in their progression. And that way you can hold your commissioner and me as your county judge accountable for how your tax dollars are being spent. Everyone think that's a good idea?
Yes.
I mean, I think it's a good idea. And the last key point I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to talk about some other things, but the last key point I'm going to talk about is a county strategic plan. So this county does not have a strategic plan. And I'm telling you right now, we need one. Because we've had this population growth in this county. And we're going to continue having population growth in this county. And we're going to continue recruiting businesses to move to this county. Which means we're going to continue to increase the population of the county. Which means we're going to continue to increase the mobility issues we have in the county. Which means we're going to increase the amount of homes that are going to be built in the county. And so all those things, when we put those things together, what that's going to do, if we don't have a strategic plan, is we're going to be reactive and not proactive. And the last thing we want to do is be reactive, because we all know what can happen when we have reactive governments and not proactive governments when it comes to how we're going to execute and deal with these population increase, specifically when it comes to public safety and infrastructure. The two biggest things that we really deal with as a county government. The biggest thing we do is public safety. I mean, 40% of the budget is public safety. And we have infrastructure. Well, we all know, if we've ever gone driving on any of the roads around here, it doesn't matter if it's here or in Harris County, I mean, pick a county around here, and you probably sit in traffic. And if we don't have some forward thinking and put it down on paper in a strategic plan, which I envision as a 5-year strategic plan, which is a living document. That doesn't mean we write it, put it on a shelf, and forget about it, and then 4.5 years from now we dust it off and go, oh, we got to do another one. It's a living document, which means we continually go back to it. And it has to address how are we going to account for, how are we going to project what the population growth is going to be. We can do that. We had population growth. We can extrapolate these numbers. And we can make a plan for how much more resources do we have to give to public safety to ensure that we're providing the public a safe environment. We can look at infrastructure and go, okay, well, we have a thoroughfare plan. The county does have a thoroughfare plan. It's a pretty map that has a bunch of roads that exist and a bunch of dotted lines of roads that don't exist yet, right? And we'll get to talk a little bit about those in more detail a little later. We'll talk a little bit about the Woodlands Parkway extension and toll roads. But at the end of the day, that thoroughfare plan is out there because as the population grows, the idea is this is how we're going to increase the mobility around the county. And so there's a lot of roads on there that are dotted. So if I put the dollars to those dotted roads, billions, which Montgomery County does not have billions of dollars to build roads. So we have to find ways to build roads. And whether that's we have to go to the state and federal government to get the resources that we can claim from those, or any other type of, we can use tax abatements when we have big corporations move into the county, because tax abatements, if they're used responsibly, are very beneficial to the county and the citizens of the county. Because if they're used responsibly, they can actually help keep your tax rates lower. That's what they're used for. And it gives incentives for companies to move here, which increases the number of jobs we have, which boosts the economy, which it's just a continuous cycle of good, quite frankly, as long as it's used responsibly. And so, you know, we need to continue, we need a plan that has that information in there. We also need in that plan how we're going to ensure that when we develop with this population growth we have, and we have development in this county, we need to make sure that developers do their job responsibly. That's all I'm all about development. Development is great because development means the county is growing, the economy is doing well. You know, it increases the number of jobs. That is exactly what we want in the county. But we have to make sure people do it responsibly. I'm all about business, as long as it's done responsibly, right? That's why we have government regulations, by the way. If anyone doesn't know, we typically have government regulations. Some of them are overkill, don't get me wrong, but government regulations, for the most part, are typically there for consumer protection. It's to protect the consumer from a company that wants to take advantage of you. And that's why we have them. And do they overextend sometimes? Sure they do. But just like I talk about with a strategic plan, they should be a living document. We have to revisit these things. We can't write a law and then wonder why 35 years later, well, we have a law but it doesn't really work. Well, no one's even looked at it in 35 years. That's not how it's supposed to work. So we need to make sure that developers are doing the job responsibly. They have to get their permits through the county. We need to make sure they're filling out the proper permits of what they're doing. Especially if they want to develop an area that's in a floodplain or it's in an area where there's water runoff. You know, we have to make sure that they're doing the proper studies and the proper studies are vetted before the permits are issued to make sure we look at, if I put all this concrete here, what does that do upstream? What does that do downstream? It doesn't go one way, it goes both ways. Because that is protecting the future home buyer that's going to buy that house. Because I guarantee you the last thing you want to happen is you want to go buy a house and, oh no, it's never flooded here. And 2 years later, you have 6 feet of water in your house. It's not something we want. We just experienced it, right? Harvey. I mean, we saw how many homes flooded that had never flooded before, right? And so, you know, I've gone to some meetings, especially in Creekside. Granted, Creekside is a little tip of Harris County there, I get it. But I went to that meeting that they had a month and a half ago or whatever about the flooding. And I read the report that the professionals in the community wrote about what their findings were in relation to this flooding. And a lot of it stems back to the wrong permits were put in place. The FEMA gave some power to Harris County officials in certain instances for granting permits, and they granted a waiver so they didn't fill out the right permit. It all goes back to making sure it's being done properly, and that the law is being followed, and that they're responsibly building. I don't think that's too much to ask. I don't think it's too much to ask at all. And so these are the things that the strategic plan really needs to look at. We need to forge, we really need to forge relationships, right? As county officials, we need to forge relationships in special districts. So whether that's mud districts, whether that's the San Jacinto River Authority, quite frankly, whether that's the Harris County Flood District, because they have a hand in this ball game too, right? When water comes out of the Lake Conroe Dam, goes down the West Fork of the San Jacinto River, and goes into Lake Houston, guess who controls that? Harris County Flood Control District. So we have to forge relationships, right? Much like on this campaign so far, I have forged relationships with, obviously, my Democratic cohorts that are candidates in these races, but I've also forged relationships with all the Republicans that are running for office, all the Republicans that are in office, because that's how government is supposed to work. We have to forge relationships. You know, we live in this very polarized world right now, and we need to get back to where we can sit at a table, we can roll up our sleeves. Are there going to be things we disagree on? Absolutely. But that doesn't mean we can't sit at a table, talk out our differences, say what can we do to compromise for the best of the people that live in our county, in our precinct, whatever it is. Because it can be done. We've just lost right now the ability to do that. We've gotten to this my way or the highway. And it's not the way to run a government. Whether it's a federal government, whether it's a county government, whether it's a city government, it doesn't work. So we have to get back to being able to forge relationships and be able to understand that, yes, we have political differences, but I don't choose my friends based on political difference. I don't choose my friends based on R or D or I. I choose my friends based on character, based on ability, based on actions. That's what I choose my friends on. And so a lot of my friends we have huge differences in our political ideology on things. And we have great debates. We might yell at each other a little bit. But that's okay. Because at the end of the day, we can sit at the table and roll up our sleeves and have a beer, and we are still best friends. Because that's not how we judge everything in our lives. And we have to get back to that. And for me, that's what this campaign is about. This campaign is about campaigning on the issues. This campaign is about telling you my qualifications for this job. And I feel that I am the most qualified candidate in this race for this job. I mean, this job is about project management. It's what I do for a living. This job is about transparency and integrity. I didn't graduate from the Naval Academy and work in the nuclear power industry because I don't have those things. And so I'm really trying to relay those to everyone I talk to. I think it's important because I think I am the most qualified person for this job. And so I'm trying to convey those messages and tell you what I'm going to do if I can earn your vote and get elected in November to be your next county judge. And so a couple of other issues I just want to talk about briefly because these are the key issues, I should say the hot issues in the county. So we need to talk about them. And the first one I'm going to talk about is toll roads. Right? So there's a lot of contention about the 249 extension. There's a lot of contention about the flyovers on 242. And here's what I have to say about toll roads. This has been my position since I've started this campaign, and it will never waver. Let me ask this question first. Who here is a fan of toll roads? Raise your hand. If you're a fan, if you like them.
I use them.
Okay, fair enough. You use them, but do you like them?
The cleaning part or the driving part? That's my question.
So, okay, good. Fair enough. So here's my 2 cents on toll roads. I'll say I don't like toll roads because I don't like to pay the toll, right? It's a tax, right? If anyone tells you a toll's not a tax, they're fooling you. It's a tax. But it's a use tax. If you use it, you pay. If you don't, you don't. And typically, the toll roads we have in this county, which really are very non-existent, right? This county really doesn't have the 242 flyover and the 249 extension project, which is not built yet, right? Because when we talk about like the Hardy Toll Road is not a Montgomery County taxing authority, right? That's Harris County. So we do have the Grand Parkway. That's part of that goes to the county. I use it every time I come to this side of the county. I use the Grand Parkway. My commute went from 45 minutes to 20. So I'm a happy camper when I have to come over here. I'm not a happy camper when I go through the toll booth, but a happy camper because it's a lot quicker, right? So here's the deal. When we have projects around the county, mobility issues, and we got to find a solution for a mobility issue, then what we need to do is we as elected officials need to figure out what's every option we could possibly have to alleviate this mobility issue, including the toll road. And then we're going to go vet all of those options for their viability. And then we're going to prioritize them. And we will always, or should always, prioritize the toll road at the bottom of the list. It should never be the easy thing to do. And that's the problem. I think that's the perception that we have, and maybe, quite frankly, it might be the truth, that the toll road is like the elected officials' easy way, right? Just build the toll road. They don't even look at other options. Well, that's not the right way to do it. So the right way to do it is you vet these options, put the ones that are viable, rank them, put the toll road at the bottom, and it may just be that when you look at a project, the toll road is the only viable option. So what's then important about that? We need to be transparent to you about how we came up with that and why the other options aren't viable. And then we need to make sure everybody understands that when it comes to toll roads, they are built with revenue bonds, which means that it is not taxpayer money. Taxpayer money is not at risk when you build a toll road with revenue bonds, which is how toll roads are built. what happens is they go do a traffic and revenue study. They decide how much traffic is going to go on that street to determine how much revenue the project can garner. And they usually look at it over 20 or 30 years. And they see if it's viable from that aspect. Will investors go buy these bonds and so we can build this project? So you have to have a viable project for the investors to come in and buy up these bonds to build the road. And then once we build it, it's going to be tolled at some rate, right? And then here's the part that I think people really get mad about. I don't think it's so much the building of a toll road or, quite honestly, the driving on the toll road. I think the thing that irritates a lot of people is that once it's a toll road, the toll never goes away, right? And again, this is something where we need to be, as a government, more transparent with you about why some of those decisions are made, right? So this is specifically kind of talking about the 242 flyover because people are saying it's paid for, because they are. The two flyovers are paid for. So why is it still a toll? So here's a couple things that have to go into that. During the time that it's built and you're running on it and it's generating revenue, then we should be doing a study that whole time that's looking at maintenance costs. So we can calculate what the annual maintenance cost is for that stretch of that toll road during the course of the time that it's generating revenue to pay for it. Because at the end of the day, I think it'd be a great idea to get rid of the toll once it's paid for. But here's the catch. The catch is, how much is that maintenance cost? Because if you take the toll away, that maintenance cost now goes on the county budget, which is directly from your tax dollars. So now everybody in the county is going to pay for it. Whether you use it or not, you're going to pay for it. If you keep the toll, if the choice is made to keep the toll, then part of that money can go to pay the maintenance, and the other part of that money can go to other infrastructure projects in the county. Because we don't have, remember I said earlier, we got this thoroughfare plan, billions and billions of dollars to build these, we don't have it, so how can we get it? Well, one avenue to get some of that money is that, which is why those decisions are made, right? But we need to be transparent about why those decisions are made. Because people just think, well, they're just collecting our money and doing nothing with it, right? Which I hope is not the truth. But we need to be transparent about why we do it, right? And that's why those decisions have to be made over the course of time, what we do with toll roads versus non-toll roads. And I can tell you, to finish my conversation about the 249 extension, I can only tell you this. I had nothing to do with how we got to where we are with the 249 extension. I can't tell you if they vetted everything the way I've talked about everything being vetted before we came up with this project. But I can tell you where it stands today. Where it stands today, with the agreements that have been signed, is that if Montgomery County were to decide to pull out of building their 3.6 mile section, which they can very well do, then the way the contract or the agreement is written is that the next entity that has a choice to pick it up or not is Harris County. So now Harris County can decide based on the revenue study, do we want to pick this up as a toll road? Well, if the revenue study is good, guess what they're going to say? They're going to say yes. And then they're going to take it, and they're going to build that 3.6 mile, and then when you go through it and pay the toll, that money will go to Harris County. Now, if they do decide to pass on it, it'll go to TxDOT. And TxDOT will have the choice of, do I build it as a toll road? Can I build it as a toll road? Because we know right now it's very contentious in the state to continually build toll roads, right? So it may or may not get approval to proceed as a toll road, which means if they decide not to do it, then that project is going to go into the non-toll road project bucket, and it's going to be ranked against all the other non-toll road projects around the state, and really it's around this area, which is the Houston area. So it might not get built for 10 years or 15 years, who knows? But the bottom line is, if that happens, what about the people that live in Magnolia that have mobility issues that are not getting solved, right? So this is where we have to look broader and bigger picture. And I can tell you right now that there is no way Harris County will not pick it up as a toll road. There's no way. So it'll still be a toll road, but the money will go somewhere else, which doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense to me. Because not only do we have to be elected officials that represent you, we need to be transparent. Again, I don't know. I don't know everything about how we got here. But what we also have to do as elected officials, especially at the county level, is we do have to look at certain things from a business perspective, keeping the voters, certainly, their needs in mind. Well, we know that that area has a mobility issue. We know that at this point in time, that road is going to be a toll road no matter who builds it. So, from a business standpoint, it makes awful good sense that if it's going to be a toll road no matter what, we ought to get the revenue from it. That's all I can say about it. I mean, I just can't think of any other thing. I mean, you guys can throw tomatoes at me or whatever, but I'm just trying to think logically about this thing that I had nothing to do with how we got here. I just know where we are today and what makes sense about moving forward into the future. So those are some of the biggest issues in the county that are going on. There's many more, but I have to pick a few. And I really want to kind of end this evening on this note. I want to talk a little bit about, I don't know if anyone's paid attention, but there was this congressional district race in Pennsylvania last night. I don't know if anyone knows about it. And so here's the deal. Hey, here's the deal. Connor Lamb won that race for one reason. Now, there's many reasons he won it, but in the broader picture, there's one reason that Connor Lamb won that race. Because he was an exceptional candidate. And the people in that district voted for a candidate and not a party. And they made a good choice. And that's why he won that race. Because he stayed true to himself about who he was as a Democrat. And again, I say this all the time. I'm a Democrat. I'm a proud Democrat. But that doesn't mean that I have to agree with every single thing the Democratic Party stands for. Because that's not how the human brain works. That also means that I agree with some of the things that the Republican Party stands for. That's how the human brain works. That's how people are. And so that's why in this race, I can tell you that I encourage everybody to vote for candidates and not parties. And I don't know if this is any encouragement for that, but if you don't know this already, but this election in November is the last time you can straight ticket vote in the state of Texas. So those people that go to the polls and just hit D or R, this is the last time you can do it. Because the last legislative session eliminated straight ticket voting in Texas, starting with the presidential election in 2020. So what does that mean to me? What that means is, what I hope it'll mean to other people is, vote for candidates. Choose the best candidate for that race. Because you're probably going to find that in some races, the best candidate that you agree with is a Democrat. And you might find that the best candidate in a certain race is a Republican. It happens. That's how it's supposed to work. That's how a two-party system works. And that's healthy. It's healthy for the government. It's healthy for you because it provides checks and balances in your government. It encourages people to run for office. And when you have candidates on both sides of the equation, two-party system we live in here, when you have two candidates from both parties running and you have opposed races, it doesn't matter who wins when it comes to this. You have better politicians when you have opposed races. Because when they know somebody's gunning for that seat, they're probably going to do a little bit more to try to keep it when they come up for re-election. And that's what we want. That's what benefits you and me. I mean, I'm a taxpayer too. So that's what we want to encourage, right? And we want to encourage more people to run for office. We want to make sure every race is contested because that's what makes for a better government for you. And so I am so excited this year that we have, for this county, that we have 10 partisan race Democratic candidates running. And we have 3, and maybe probably more by the end of the day, in nonpartisan races that are running. This is the first time this has happened in over 2 decades in Montgomery County, right? And when we look at county governments, and it doesn't, not just this county, any small local type race, right? Let me just fill you in on a few facts, and then we'll finish up and ask any questions. Because this is one reason I'm really running at the local level. Campaign finance laws for local level candidates like me. How stringent do you think they are? Anyone have a guess? So let me tell you. How about federal races? You guys know the requirements for federal races, right? It has to be an individual. There's a maximum amount you can contribute per election, and they do consider a primary election and a general election different elections, right? So your numbers reset after those elections. If you are a business, you cannot contribute to a campaign, right? You can contribute to a PAC, but not a campaign. So let me tell you how it works at the local level. Limits on contributions. There are none. 0. I could have one person walk up to me with a $1 million check and say, here, go win that race. And it's perfectly legal for me to take. If you are a business, with the exception of an incorporated, if you're an LLC, a PLC, a PLLC, a PC, you can contribute to my campaign. And there is no limit on how much you can contribute. So if you are a construction company XYZ and you walk up to me and go, here's a $1 million check, I want you to get elected as the county judge. Because guess what the Commissioner's Court does? They award county contracts. So tell me this system doesn't set it up for corruption at the local level. Why do we think our politics at the local level are so corrupt? Because the state of Texas finance laws put us in that situation. So we need people that have integrity, we need people that have accountability, and we need people that will work for you and not for their own self-interests or their friends' self-interests to get elected at the local level. And that is why I'm doing this. And again, I can't thank you enough for coming tonight. I'm certainly asking for your vote in November because I really do want to represent each and every one of you. And when I say each and every one of you, I mean that literally, and I mean that across the county. Again, like I said earlier, I don't care if you're an R, a D, an I don't care. If I get elected as your county judge, I will represent you because that is my job. I don't get to pick and choose who I get to represent. My obligation is to represent everybody. And the only loyalty that I have if I get elected is to the U.S. Constitution, the Texas Constitution, and making sure that I am transparent and accountable for my actions to every one of you. So again, I'm asking for your vote in November. I'm asking for your support. If you can volunteer your time for the campaign, please talk to Adam. We have a list, or Penny. We can get you signed up and find out what you want to do. Certainly, if you can afford it, contribute a few bucks to my campaign. The one thing I hate about politics is it does cost money to get elected. You don't have to raise the most money. You just have to have enough money to be competitive, right? And I can tell you right now, for me, money is certainly needed. That's how we get these push cards and signs that we have. And beyond that, I need people to help me because the best thing we can do as a campaign is go knock on every single door in Montgomery County and tell them who I am and ask them for their vote. That is the #1 thing we can do to win this race, because that is the most effective thing that gets people to go to the polls. Because that's what we have to do in November. Get people to the polls to vote. And try to eliminate the stigma that we have in Texas of being a non-voting state. Because that's what we are. So we need to get people energized. We need to get people out there. I am so happy you came tonight, and I appreciate every single one of you being here. And if you have any questions, I'm here for you. Fire away. I know I didn't do that good of a job, but nobody has a question.
You did an excellent job.
Yes, ma'am. They are not. Political contributions are not taxable.
You're too thorough, Jay. You said it
Hey.
all.
Right.
I'm sure there's plenty more that can get asked.
Page, website.
Yes, ma'am.
You're talking about campaign finance. These acts have really overrun money. I mean, they're creating fake acts to put more money behind candidates and make it look like that candidate has 8 different endorsements and it's all the same people in those organizations.
Yep.
You know,
And that's good.
Is there, I mean, I know you can refuse contributions,
Yes.
which is hard to do when you need money, but, you know, is there something, you know, to keep the PACs ethical? You know, their voter guides are not voter guides. There's some rich man's pick.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, I absolutely agree. We as candidates can certainly refuse contributions. We don't have to take any contribution. And quite honestly, if somebody gives us a contribution and then they do something that is inappropriate, we can certainly give it back to them.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know specifically, you know, other than really engagement from citizens to kind of call that thing out, because it's not hard, legally, it's not hard to set up a PAC.
No.
And there's, you know, there's rules about PACs, but it's not like stringent rules, right? So it's hard to attack it from that aspect, but really it's really incumbent on engagement from citizens to call that stuff out, right? Because unfortunately, we all know how dirty politics can be. And it's unfortunate that we've gotten to there. I mean, that's existed for years. I mean, let's not fool ourselves, right? I mean, so specifically, I don't know what to say, but you know, the only thing I can say about the campaign finance laws, and I've said this before about like corporate contributions to my campaign, the one thing I have said is that if you're a company that ever wants to get a county contract, please don't contribute to my campaign, because I don't want any semblance of a conflict of interest to exist. I'd rather lose and be able to sleep at night than have that hanging over my head, because it's just not that important to me to get a few bucks from somebody.
Well, I think that's a good start, because there's a lot of engineering firms that they just went out and said, engineering firm, you know, engineering,
Right.
and they're all the engineering firms that already have contracts with you.
That's right. And I agree with you. And so that's been my policy I've made. You know, people have talked to me about, well, why don't you just say that, you know, there's no quid pro quo here if you contribute to my campaign. Look, I don't even want the perception of a conflict of interest. I don't need the money that bad. I mean, if I can't wear out my shoes and go knock on doors and try to win because I don't have enough money to hire people to do it, whatever, I don't care about that, right? I mean, to me, that's not going to make or break this campaign because, you know, this campaign is a group effort. I try to always say we when I talk about me, because it's not me, it's we. I mean, I have people that work on my campaign and they work really hard, and I couldn't do it without them. And so, you know, we can't do it without volunteers. You know, if you're afraid to go knock on the door, just come do it with us sometime. I mean, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that bad. I mean, if you have a fear, but you go, you're like, "Ew." And then they open the door and they're like, "You found me." I didn't know there was another Democrat in Montgomery County. Right? I'm gonna tell people, you know, you gotta talk to people. You can't be. I mean, people are afraid to like tell their neighbors they're a Democrat, right? I mean, I don't get it. I mean, coming from my military background, I don't get it. I mean, people knew I was I didn't vote when I was in the military because I was an officer, and I didn't care who the commander-in-chief was. I wasn't going to politicize my job. I had a job to do, and so if the commander-in-chief said, you know, you need to fire missiles, which he did to our ship, and we fired missiles into Iraq. I can't be swayed by my political ideologies when I get told to do something like that. If it was a lawful order, then I have to execute that order. And that's what we did. But there's a lot of people in the military that do vote, and they are very political. But as an officer, I still have to lead them as a team. And I didn't care what their political ideology was. I cared that we accomplished our mission, and we did it together. Because, you know, if you talk to your neighbors, you're going to find that Republicans and Democrats have a lot more in common than we actually have apart. If we just sit and talk to each other. We really do. There's obviously the exceptions. We know they exist. But for the most part, we have a lot of the same things in common. We might have a little bit of a difference in maybe how to get there. But the truth is, we have end goals. We have a lot of similar things in common. So that's why I say, you know, and as Carol said in her campaigns, unity in the community, right? I mean, if there's anything I want to do in this campaign, is try to get people to talk to each other. Because, you know, I'm certainly willing, as I told you, I'll sit and roll up my sleeves and hammer out an issue with anybody. Because if you sit at the table and do that and be willing to compromise, I guarantee you can find a solution. I guarantee it. But if you are not willing to do that and you say it's my way or the highway, we get nothing done. And you sit at home and go, why is nothing getting, I hate this whole thing, nothing ever gets done. We got to overcome all that, right? And how do we do that? We start at the local level. We got to start at the local level. And we got to get people out to vote. Because the more people that vote, and I don't care what party it is, the more people that vote and participate and engage in our democracy, it makes it that much better. So we have to do that. So I know I rambled on a little bit about your comment, but I think that, you know, so again, go to my Facebook page, like my Facebook page and follow it if you haven't. If I make posts, share them. Just remember this, share, then like. Share, then like. And encourage your friends to share, then like. Because that's how social media works. I love getting likes, don't get me wrong. But likes don't make social media work, shares do. Because do the math, right? It's pretty simple. It's pretty simple exponentials, right? Just do like a 10 factorial, and you'll figure it out. And if you don't know what that is, Google it. Anything else? All right, go to my website. Again, go to my website. There's information there. If you want to donate to my campaign, you can do it through my website. There's also an address if you're a check writer. Some people are check writers. There's an address you can send it to. I encourage you to do that. And come out to my other events that I have. Encourage your friends and neighbors to come out and listen. Because, you know, I think we can make some real change in this county.
What is your website?
www.jstittleburg.com, and all of you should have these little push cards in front of you, and my website address and my email address are on there. And the website also has links to all of my social media, and if you do want to get on the email list, just see Penny, raise your hand, Penny, before you leave, and we can put you on the email list so we can make sure that you get the important information about the campaign. Anything else?
I'm on Facebook watching you right now. How can I get on your email?
If somebody's watching right now, you can go to my website and just send us an email. Just send us an email through the website. And there's actually a form you can fill out on there to get on join. It's join us on my website. If you just fill the form out and then hit the send button, it basically just gives us your information to put on the email list. Great question. All right, again, I thank you so much for being here. I hope you have a great rest of the week. We do have St. Patrick's Day coming up on Saturday, so for those of you that are fans of St. Patrick's Day, please enjoy responsibly.